Hi, I'm Brett Norton. I'm the executive producer for Neverwinter here at Cryptic Studios.
Hi, I'm Misa Gans. I'm the lead product manager for Neverwinter over here at Cryptic Studios, same team.
I am TJ Denzer, senior news editor for Shacknews. Here today with the Neverwinter team, we have live streamed the game in the past, we have checked out other expansion content, and today we're talking about Neverwinter Dragonslayer, the next expansion coming to the game, but we're doing something a little bit different. We have brought together an array of increasingly heated hot sauces. We are going to be doing this up a little bit like Hot Ones style, eating our favorite chicken nuggets with these hot sauces as we talk about the expansion content. And it should be a blast as we go through these ascendingly heated styles of sauce in our interview. So to kick things off, we're going to go with Sriracha, a staple of the pantry. Easy peasy, light and easy. This one's only 1,000 to 3,000 Scoville units. Very easy eat, not too hot, but we're just going to make it gentle to kick things off. Neverwinter Dragonslayer is the next step in the Neverwinter story as far as like expansion content, as far as narrative content. This is going to be the next big thing. Right. So can you take us a little bit into what is going on with this latest module?
Dragonslayer is going to be a different module than some of the modules we've done in the past. You know, with Dragonslayer, the entire focus is on hunting dragons in their lairs. We have dragons in Neverwinter. We've had them for many, many years, but generally they show up as a part of other areas of the game. You'll encounter them in various dungeons and ruins, etc., sometimes in adventure zones. We're currently running our Siege of Neverwinter event, which is where the Cult of the Dragons attacks the Neverwinter city, and they have some dragons that come down and help them on the battlefield. But for Dragonslayer, you are specifically going into dragon lairs, like you're going to go into like a green dragon lair and fight a green dragon within his lair at sort of the apex of their power. So it's a slightly different setup for how we're using dragons, and there's a number of new mechanics and interesting things that go into fighting dragons in their lairs too. On top of just changing the location of where you're fighting the dragons, dragons in general have been completely retooled in Neverwinter. They have a lot more new powers, basically. It varies from just different types of attacks they can do with their claws, their bites, their breath attacks, as well as they can cast spells, which is sort of something that's been a part of D&D since many, many ages. But generally, dragons don't quite have access to sort of a full repertoire of wizard and cleric style spells. But now in Neverwinter with Dragonslayer, they will. They'll cast things like Incinerary Cloud and other various D&D spells. So not only do you have to deal with their sort of normal stable of Dragon Claw, Dragon Bite, tail, breath attacks, etc., but now you got to deal with all the spells that they can cast too. So we've changed where and kind of some of the mechanics around fighting dragons, as well as a very big retooling of the dragons themselves. And we've already put up some imagery, but you can see that we've also redone the models and a lot of the animations for our dragons. So all 5 of the chromatic dragons, green, black, blue, white, red, being completely redone, much higher quality, etc., much more sort of like modern. The first models came out many, many years ago, so we've updated them quite a bit. So complete visual retooling, complete gameplay retooling, and now you can actually, specifically go attack dragons within their lairs here in the Dragonslayer module.
Yeah, wait until you see them stand up and go into their other postures, because they got multiple postures now too. Like when they go cast those spells, like Brett's talking about, they will totally change how they're standing. Like the dragon will change its position, and you'll know it's going to be casting spells, and it's time to react. It's really
and the spells differ for each dragon type. White dragons cast different spells than red dragons, etc. So it's not ever the same dragon twice.
This has been kind of a dragon-heavy year for the Neverwinter MMO. You had the Dragonblight Mythal, which gave us this narrative of taking on a dragon cult who was trying to bring dead dragons back to life, and now you've got this rework where you're kind of taking all the dragons that have been around for a long time and redoing them. And is it safe to say this has been kind of like was this always the plan to make it such a dragon-heavy year, or was that something that sort of came along as you were working through it?
Longer term wise, it was part of the plan. There was sort of it was roughly called the Year of the Dragon. It was basically a whole series of, with Dragonbone Vale and the next up Dragonslayer 2, a longer term investment into wanting to, do more dragon themed content. The last time that we specifically did dragon themed content in Neverwinter was largely back, in the Well of Dragons and Tyranny of Dragons campaign, which was many, many years ago. It was one of the first campaigns that Neverwinter actually put out. And that's where we, did a lot of original work with Tiamat and all the various dragons. And so we felt that it was time to sort of revisit that. Dragons are extremely popular within Neverwinter and Dungeons and Dragons as a whole. And since it had been so long since we'd done anything fairly dragon-centric, we felt it was putting in an extended amount of time into dragons as a whole and doing, again, both Dragonbone Veil and the Dragonslayer module.
Yeah, we give you lots of dungeons, and now it is Dungeons and Dragons, so we do want to give you some dragons to fight too. So, so we had to go address the dragons. And yeah, it was always on the agenda to get the dragons reworked and get them put into the game, like the whole Dragonbone Veil and with the Scaled Light Mythal, like you said, and then continuing the story with dragons throughout the year.
So this Nando's Peri Peri sauce is going to be 6,000 Scoville. It's going to be our second one. Still pretty gentle. We're going to get into the hotter ones down the line, but still, this is a nice one.
Sadly, I could not get Nando's Peri Peri. They were backlogged and it did not ship on time. And my replacement will be Elkins, Colorado Hot AF sauce. This is something I recently picked up on a vacation. This might be hotter than it should be for the second one, but I'll give it a shot.
This one's pretty.
And Sriracha was 1,000, you said?
Yeah,
okay.
This one is kind of thin. It's like much thinner than the other one. Wow, it's like super like lime. Is that what it is? I think it's lime. It's really good. I don't know how spicy it is, but it's lemon.
Well, for the Colorado Elkins sauce, the first ingredient is Carolina Reaper. The second one is Trinidad Scorpion. The third one's habanero.
You picked one that's like the spicier than the last one.
Maybe then vinegar and molasses and salt are the next one. So this is also a vinegar-based sauce.
Ours is much less spicy than what you just ate. Ooh. So
definitely got some kick to it.
Yeah, that one's pretty intense.
It's got a slow burn to it. The initial heat was less than Sriracha, but it's got a long tail throat burn. So definitely feeling the heat now. This is what red dragons must feel like after a fire breath attack.
Oh God.
And speaking of dragon behaviors, you talked a little bit about the postures of dragons. One thing I saw that was interesting is actually with this rework, it'll be one of the first times that dragons are capable of taking flight. Can you go in a little bit more into detail on that?
Maybe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
we can go into it.
They'll totally take off. So in the middle of the fight, at certain points, depending on the age, I don't think all of them can do it. A dragon will take flight, and then once it's in the air, it's gonna start doing all kinds of different stuff. And so you better watch out because it totally changes the combat.
Yeah, to expand on that a little bit, the dragons are broken down into 3 age groups: young, adult, and ancient. And they're targeted at different, basically, group sizes. You should be able to solo, for example, a young dragon. And the adults are targeted at groups of 3. And the ancients are targeted at sort of full groups of 5. And each of those age groups has access to sort of different dragon powers. So, a black young dragon won't quite use all of the same set of powers as an adult, and the ancient will have even more powers available than the adult as well. And some of those are related to sort of, we call them stances. Like you have the default sort of quadruped stance, which is what the youngs kind of use. The adults get access to a few more, and then the ancients can use flying, they can use biped, and there's more attacks and more variety of sort of powers and spells that they have access to based on their various stances. So when you get to ancient, it's sort of the most complex, and hopefully getting a chance to fight some youngs and some adults will prepare adventurers for the challenge of taking on the ancient dragons and their full array of different spells. And again, it's not set. They don't always go into their flying mode or their other stances that they have. So each time you fight, even if it's the same, even if you're fighting like an ancient green dragon, you'll have a slightly different fight each time based on which stances they opt to go into and which ones they don't use.
Yeah, and the dragons are visually different as well. So when you go and fight a young dragon, it'll look totally different and less imposing than when you go fight an ancient dragon with your group of 5.
And that flying thing is an interesting thing, especially considering the idea, like, I kind of wondered, like for mages and rangers and classes with distant options like arrows and magic, that won't be a big deal if a dragon is flying. But I wondered about like melee classes like warriors. Will they kind of have to, if a dragon takes flight, will they kind of have to deal with the dragon being in the air and being out of range? While they just have to sit on their hands and wait for it to land?
We opted not to have that. You could have still attacked the dragon's tail and other body parts. When they're flying, in this case, we don't have them, for example, flying super far overhead, just doing bombing runs on the player. They're actually sort of hovering over the battlefield. So they're within range of your spells and things. But the reverse is also true. They can still do physical attacks against you, come down and swipe at you, use their tail to do sweeps, etc. So you're not out of the safety range of their physical attacks, but they're also not out of the safety range of your physical attacks as well.
It's pretty cool though when you see like a barbarian come in with the two-handed sword and just attacking a dragon from below. It's pretty cool.
Well, next up in our sauce adventure, we have Dirty Dick's. Dirty Dick's hot sauce.
This one seems
with a tropical twist.
It's mildly inappropriate. With a tropical twist, indeed.
Habanero, mangoes, pineapple, vinegar, bananas, tomatoes, brown sugar, raisins.
It smells sweet, not
spicy. So this one is a bit jammy. It takes a jump. This one is around 21,000 Scoville units, depending on the pepper.
Not for you.
Yes, it's supposed to be spicy, but we are also getting into the habanero end of the hot sauces. This one had habanero in it, and all the other ones will as well from here on out.
It's actually like we've gone down in thinness each time.
There's less filler, more salt, more peppers, I guess. Let's see.
Oh my god, that's like biting into a fruit.
Like when I was planning these sauces, I definitely wanted to raise the heat little by little. But I also was looking for sauces that had good flavor to them, like something that I would actually want to have in my pantry, whether I was doing this interview or not.
I mean, it's good. I don't actually feel like this is that. To me, it doesn't taste that much spicier than like the sriracha to me.
Yeah, I have to agree.
It's just sweet.
I get much more sweetness. It does have a slow burn to it. I'm getting a little bit
at the end, a little bit, yeah.
Well, I may have blown my sensors out a little bit with that Elkins. I think that was pretty high. But now I'm very curious as to what the last two are going to be like.
That one's good. I like that one, but it's a little too sweet, actually. Like a little too fruity for me, I guess.
I like sweet, so I'm good with it. That's awesome. Got a couple bottles of that. It came in packs of 2, so I'll have it around for a while.
It is kind of sneaking up a little with a little bit of warmth.
So getting back to the interview, with the next narrative step in the Neverwinter MMO, for Dragonslayer, we're getting together with a clan of dragon hunters, and particularly a character known as Smartyx. Can you go into more detail on like the narrative aspects of Dragonslayer?
Sure.
Yeah, you want to take this one, Brett? Like Smartyx is super awesome though. Like Smartyx dragon hunting crew. He's got this like motley crew that he's taking up camp in Neverwinter, in the Protector's Enclave, and you go talk to them, you go speak with them, and he gets you ready to go hunt some dragons. You even get to go fight with him for one of them, which is super fun. So like he comes in, he's introduced. We have a really cool video. I don't know when that's going to be shown, that has his book, and so we're kind of like going into the Smartyx, his motley dragon hunting crew, because they're ragtag, and it's a lot of fun. And Brett can probably go in a little bit more details to the overall backstory than I can.
I think that covers most of it. Smartyx is sort of, I wouldn't call him sort of an overconfident jerk, but he's fairly pleased with his abilities, and he's been a long time dragon hunter. He's kind of dedicated himself to the study of dragons as a whole, and sort of, I wouldn't necessarily a permanent task of vengeance, but he's fascinated by them, and he's written basically a Dragonslayer guide, a separate book that's somewhat popular, and he's called to the aid of Neverwinter by Elminster and Lord Nasher and Sergeant Knox, etc., based on the results of what happens in the Dragonbone Vale campaign. So kind of summarizing things at the end of there's some spoilers here if you haven't played through Dragonbone Vale, but at the end of Dragonbone Vale, Valindra, who is a lich with a grudge against Neverwinter, is attempting to control all of the dragons on the Sword Coast using an ancient artifact. The adventurers interfere with that and cause it to go awry. Now, she still manages to cast a flawed version of the artifact's power, but rather than what the original goal was, turning all the dragons into Dracoliches under her control, it actually starts affecting mostly the chromatic dragons and kind of driving them somewhat insane. It sort of amplifies their negative and aggressive tendencies, and many of them start basically engaging and attacking the townsfolk, Neverwinter itself, and the people of the Sword Coast much more aggressively than they normally do. Some of them are, not all dragons just go out and pillage and rampage. Some of them are much more scheming They generally lie low. They don't try to drag attention to themselves. But now they've kind of flipped that, and now they're much more out of the open, causing a lot more chaos. So Smartyx recruited. He brings in his group, and he's tasked with sort of recruiting the adventurers and other people to form sort of a dragon-repelling army that can go out and stave off these chromatic dragons from basically wreaking havoc on the Sword Coast.
Yeah, and it's super cool because basically you go join up with Smartyx, and you go, and so it's like the dragons are terrorizing the Sword Coast, and so you're going to go into their lairs and go kill them before they can cause problems.
Yep.
And it's interesting that you bring up the personality of dragons, like the green cunning dragon and maybe the less brutish ones. Was Dragonslayer an opportunity to like more flesh out the personalities of these dragons in addition to the reworks of their gameplay styles?
Yeah, for sure. So we definitely like each, as you mentioned just there, like every color of chromatic dragon has its own personality, and they have their own ways of fighting and their own places they like to live. So we got to really dive into that and set up from their environments where you fight them in their lairs, to their combat abilities, to the spells they cast, and how they talk to you, when you know, how they taunt you when you're fighting them. All of that is different based on the color of the dragon, to align with like a green dragon being vicious, right? So it's pretty cool.
Yep. And we had a substantial more dialogue for each of the dragons too. So they had a relatively small amount of actual dialogue for each of the different chromatic dragon types, and I think we quintupled it, or maybe even 6x'd it from what we used to have in Neverwinter. So it's a substantial amount more unique dialogue for each of the chromatic dragon types, and it gives us just a better chance to kind of convey their personalities too. So based on what they do and what they say, you get a different sense. So, and the voices are fantastic. We just got those in a few weeks back in the first versions, and they sound awesome.
I wish I could just sit around talking to dragons.
Yeah.
But at the very least, I might be able to breathe fire like them after this next one. The next one we have up is Yellow Bird Habanero Condiment. This sauce is going to be a much spicier one compared to the other ones. This is one of my favorite ones, by the way. It is a solid 30,000 Scoville. It can get up even higher. It has quite some range to it, depending on the habaneros used.
Wow. Carrots, onions,
smell-
habanero.
This one smells hot. So do they have different formulas, or it's just the difference in the habaneros?
So yeah, the range in the Scoville actually depends on the types of habaneros used, and sometimes you'll get a batch like habaneros have different colors, right? The green, orange, red, and it gets hotter the closer you get to the reddish hue.
It's almost like an applesauce. It's
This one smells.
Yeah.
This one's a little thicker, and it smells a little bit spicy this time.
yeah. All right.
Oh, that's really good. I like this one.
The cool thing about the yellow bird is that the longer it sits on the tongue, like it doesn't really hit you right up front, but you let it sit, and those habaneros will kick
This
up the
one's
heat
good.
over time.
This one's got a little heat.
Nothing much up front. We'll see how the slow heat burns.
I like this one. This is my favorite one so far. I like the lid. It's like you can just do a. Should I do that? I should totally do this. I should totally just do it for your video.
That's a slow heat.
There you go.
It's slowly starting to build up. Now it's starting to get to me, maybe.
Am I going to regret what I just did? Because I don't think I am.
Maybe. Like the last one, the Dirty Dicks one, that was almost an instantaneous back of the throat heat. This is very slowly building over time. Oh
yeah. There. Oh my God, you did way more than I did. That was good. I like that one. No, this is fantastic. Is this like made near you? You can actually, now you can see I got a little bit of heat from that one. When I did that spread, I'm a little sweaty. For some reason, it's getting me like right around the mouth.
I just felt in the back of the throat still. It's definitely a slower, longer burn on that one.
I like that one.
One of the more interesting aspects of this one that I saw when I was looking at Dragonslayer's content, I saw that y'all are redoing one of the encounters, Tiamat, who has been in the game for quite some time, player favorite encounter, and you all are redoing that encounter for Neverwinter Dragonslayer.
All right, so Tiamat was a trial, which actually originally featured 15 people, and it was one of the first, maybe the first trial done for Never, way back in the day with the Tyranny of Dragons campaign. It was updated a while back and lowered down to a 10-man trial. That was great because it actually helped performance-wise on our consoles in particular. And most of all our other trials are standardized now to be 10-person because we kind of adopted that standard after we did Tiamat and Reels at 15 was a little too much for consoles. But we did some only minor updates to it a few years back to improve performance and some other changes. And as we've gone on throughout Neverwinter's development, we've sort of standardized and had like a new way we do trials, especially some of the more recent ones, like Trial of the Mad Mage and Zariel's Challenge, etc. And the most recent Crown of Caldegon, that they have a sort of different build and style to them. And Tiamat kind of wasn't adhering to a lot of how we built them, and the mechanics are fairly well known, and we wanted to modernize them and also just take a chance to add more challenges. Since we were kind of working on the dragons, we felt that having this gigantic Queen of the Evil Dragons boss that was not as modernized as our other dragons was a little bit odd. So we spent some time reworking it, and it's almost completely new. It still features Tiamat, it's still taking place in the Well of Dragons, and Severin's still in it, but almost all of the other mechanics throughout the entire fight are different. It's still super impressive and super awesome, and you actually get to fight more against Tiamat now, whereas before you only kind of fought her against her heads a little bit, and the rest of the time you were kind of protecting some clerics and whatnot. Now there's a little bit more direct engagement with actually fighting Tiamat, and it's still one of the coolest, most sort of epic trials in all of them. And even the old version was still one of my favorites. I love the music that when you go into it, and when Tiamat emerges and casts a giant shadow over the entire battlefield, I love it. And I'm kind of just biased just because I used to watch the old D&D cartoon, and Tiamat was always a big prominent figure of that as well. So I'm super happy to see the Tiamat trial get some updates. And not only that, but we have added 2 versions of the Tiamat trial. There's a normal version, which we are balancing and targeting for use in what we call our random trial queue. That's where you can basically do the trial with other players just randomly in a sort of a pickup group style. And then we have a separate, much harder master version where many of the mechanics are increasingly more punishing, and they're much more picky about timing, and they require much more coordination to defeat. And that is not targeted at public groups. That's targeted more at like guilds and organized play, where people who really want to get in and bang their heads against hard mechanics and really enjoy that sort of tightly knit group challenge content. So that's what's them for them. So both of those versions should be launching when Dragonslayer comes out on June 14th.
It's interesting considering that, because as you mentioned, and as I said before, like Tiamat, the encounter, the trial, it's a player favorite. It was there in the beginning, and you've had a lot of people that loved it already. And I wonder, with like the reworks to the dragons and everything, how did you go about approaching the Tiamat trial with this rework, while also keeping the things intact that people loved about it in the first place?
So, so basically, when we decided, when Brett was talking, when we were like, we're doing a bunch of dragon rework, and the Queen of Dragons, Tiamat, this most important dragon in our game, basically, like it's D&D war, like you're terrified when Tiamat comes into play. We need to address this. So we went to our systems team and we spoke to them and said, hey, we want to investigate this and see if we can do anything. And so we just went through the regular process of just updating a feature. So the designers in question just went through, looked at what we had, and suggested ideas as to ways we can make that master version, that super hard version, and the ways we can modernize it and make it more smooth with the new dragon mechanics that we have. And then we just tested it. We get players involved. Our community manager gets involved and helps the designers who are working on the boss gather a raid for our preview server. We jump on, we test it. We test them internally as well. And we have a lot of little mini councils internally, which we use to make sure that things are coming out in a manner that we're happy. And so we just follow our standard process and trust our systems team to come out with really good stuff, and they do.
I think it's important to note that the people working on it are people that enjoy the trials and some of the hard content, but they also appreciate what makes for good sort of public-facing content. We learned a lot from some of the more recent trials that we've done in terms of how to better balance the mix of what we want for harder master versions, what we want for public-facing versions, and we also knew what were the great elements of Tiamat that we didn't want to break or change. Like, we still wanted Tiamat to come out of the pit and cast that awesome shadow that I kind of mentioned. We still wanted to have the giant heads of Tiamat blasting the entire battlefield filled with huge breath attacks, those sorts of things. So all those really impactful, awesome, visceral moments are still in, but we revamped a number of the other mechanics and some of the things that were sort of less Tiamat focused, less fun, and tried to put a little bit more of the emphasis again on battling Tiamat and less on sort of having to corral various minions of hers, etc. So I think we hopefully have made some really positive changes, and that we didn't lose anything that made the Tiamat encounter really fun and a great experience for everyone who's played Neverwinter.
Alrighty. Well, coming up on the last of these sauces, hopefully, if you haven't been breathing fire yet, hopefully this will be the one to do it. This is Dave's Gourmet Crazy Caribbean hot sauce. Dave's Gourmet, considered at times to be some of the hottest hot sauce in the world. This is a different one, of course. This is a spinoff.
I don't know. If you can see there, it only shows as warm on the side. The thermometer they have isn't even full.
Well, we didn't go with the craziest one.
That's right, but this one is still pretty warm. It is supposed to be, on the Scoville counter, 50,000 to 200,000, depending on the
All right,
type
that's
of
a pretty
pepper
broad
season.
range.
That one smells warm. Whoa, that one pours fast. Holy shit. Pardon my French. Can I say that? Am I allowed to even?
I'll catch it in post.
Yeah, right? No post. All right. This is the last one, so we have to go big.
Right.
Otherwise, we're little babies. Okay. Now I dripped it on my leg. Like, I don't know how. I don't know if that was spicier than the other one. Yeah, we'll see if it, like, sneaks up on me on the way back. I just fumbled
turns
it.
into a one-chip challenge or something.
Yeah, I gotta fish this out now, though, because I fumbled it. So now I got a really spicy one. I didn't even know Tabascos were actually a pepper. I thought that was just a sauce. I think the yellow bird's hotter.
Yeah, I'm getting a little more heat. I'll actually say though, I think my bonus sauce that I brought wins the hottest competition, the Elkins.
I actually kind of wish I had checked out that Elkins sauce.
Well, there you go. So I'll pimp it out. This is actually from a small distillery in what is it? Can't remember. Elkins, Colorado. A name off the name, obviously, but that one's a hot one. That's the one. It's the first two ingredients are Carolina Reaper and Trinidad Scorpion.
Well, yeah, that's definitely the hottest one that you had today.
Yeah, I'll do a little bit more of it just because.
Oh God! Now I feel like I have to go get something hotter because I feel like I'm being beat.
I gotta prove. Let's see. And then that we've tried the other ones, I want to do a refresher and see if I really think this is still the hottest one.
It is.
Or if it just numbed my mouth so much that everything else doesn't taste hot anymore.
It's definitely the hottest one.
Oh.
I'd go grab one of the hotter sauces and then eat another nug, but we're out. I only had 5.
Ooh. Oh man, I gotta look at this.
Breakfast.
You said Scoville units, yeah. I gotta look at the Scoville on this. Oh, that's brutal.
What was that one called? It was Elkins.
Colorado hot AF sauce.
I will look it up for you. Like, oh, this is a whiskey sauce. This sounds great.
It is tasty. Whew.
And yet, it doesn't actually have the Scoville units.
That is not a slow burn. That is an instant burn. Oh.
It is because you just punched you right in the face, like one of the dragons, probably a red one.
Oh yeah, it's making my nose run now. Oh.
Well, while your nose runs, go ahead and also give us the rundown of when Neverwinter Dragonslayer is going to be coming out and when the folks can play it.
June 14th. That's when it will be live on all platforms. We're doing a simultaneous module release. In the past, Neverwinter's usually staggered module releases between PC and consoles by a little bit. But this time, we are aiming for a simultaneous release. So PlayStation, Xbox, and PC players will get access to Dragonslayer on the 14th. That's assuming everything goes according to plan. Right now, things are nicely on track, and we shouldn't hit any issues. So,
has it been a challenge at all preparing both console versions and PC versions at the same time for this expansion?
Yeah, a little bit. So it totally changes our. I don't know how many people understand like the back end process for getting builds to different platforms, but each one has their own process. Everybody has their own rules, and especially when you're going through console, you have to get your things go through cert. And so when you're making your builds, previously we would have our console build or our PC build made, and then we'd go through cert, right? So it's pretty interesting. In this case, we're doing it simultaneously, so it's putting a little bit more overhead and onus on us to make sure that we're communicating with multiple platforms, getting the build working for everybody who needs it all simultaneously, rather than and it's not like we're changing the data between the PC and the console. It's just that sometimes when you launch on PlayStation, it's there's just a random issue on PlayStation only, then it gets caught in cert, and you're now we have to spend time fixing it. So now this is all happening at the same time, along with our internal QA. So it's a little bit more overhead, but we think that the benefits of getting it out the door to everybody at the same time will hopefully be worth it.
Yep. We definitely had to. Go ahead. I was gonna say we definitely had to change our schedule just a tiny bit to accommodate for a little bit more time, just to kind of manage that bottleneck, because there's only so many people we have on QA and on the build and production side that can do that kind of work at once. But as long as we don't experience a ton of significant issues on multiple platforms simultaneously, we should be able to handle the issues that do come up.
And finally, do you feel like you're going to be able to do this simultaneous release thing on PC and consoles more in the future for further Neverwinter expansions?
Very much so. We're going to try to, assuming that we don't hit any huge bottlenecks and everything goes smoothly with Dragonslayer, this is something that we will continue to do for the rest of Neverwinter.
And lastly, let the folks know where can they find out more about the game? Where can they stay up to date on what's coming and when things are launching?
I believe the website is Play Neverwinter, if I remember it correctly. Yes, it's www.playneverwinter.com. If you're on a PlayStation or on Xbox, you can find it just by searching for games. It's just search for Neverwinter. It's one of the free-to-play MMORPGs if you are searching by categories. But generally, if you just search for Neverwinter on PlayStation Network or Xbox Live, it'll come up. And again, if you're on PC, just go to playneverwinter.com.
And well, that will do it then. Thank you all for joining us. This has been an awesome interview. It's been a very interesting experience. We got to try a lot of interesting sauces, and I hope you enjoyed some of these ones I picked out for y'all.
This is to our lovely viewers. If you like hot sauce, I highly recommend this one. It's really good. I have a lot of hot sauce in the house. This is going to be a staple.
The Yellowbird was one that I very much anticipated coming into this. It was one of my favorites that I picked up, but I really like that Dirty Dicks as well. The sweetness is the jammy sweetness is a very interesting flavor for a hot sauce.
I like the sweetness as well, but I will say both the Yellowbird and the Dirty Dicks are pretty solid. And if you want heat, the Elkins. But I said the Elkins has a good flavor too, but it's definitely more on the heat side.
I don't think I'd be able to do what I just did with that. Oh, here we go. I deserve that. But I have to show that I don't suck at this.